Old Bridge, New Jersey Planning Board meeting for this evening, February 16th, 2021. And would you please rise and face the flag? I pledge of allegiance
To the flag.
flag. United States
of America, the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Planning Board has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by promptly posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, and filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. Mr. De Palma,
Here.
Mr. Renna,
Here.
Mr. Lauer,
Here.
Mr. Mamakis,
Here.
Ms. Cannon,
Here.
Mr. Schmitz,
here,
Mr. Lenning,
Here.
Mr. Petty,
Here.
Mr. Garcia,
Was here.
Mr. Garcia, can you unmute, please? Chairman Marucci? Mr. Robertson? Ms. Sawant? Ms. Sawant? Ms. Shapiro?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
I believe that's it.
I didn't hear my name, Dawn, so I'm
I
here.
did say Chairman Marucci before I went to the professionals.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
And Dawn, it's Deanna Drum.
Oh, and Miss Drum, sorry about that. Didn't see
That's
your
right.
picture.
Okay, and we are, just a reminder to everybody, we're televised till 10 p.m. Okay, and to start the agenda, we have the minutes from December 8th and January 5th. And I have a motion.
I'll move it.
Been moved by Barbara Cannon,
Second.
second by Ed.
Mr. De
Yes.
Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
yes,
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, then moving on to the resolutions. And in the interest of time, we're going to group the resolutions into three groups. And the first being the chairperson, vice chair, secretary, vice secretary, and the board attorney. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lauer. Second,
Second.
second by Mr. Petty.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
yes,
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, and then the second group of resolutions is for the consultant planners and engineers, for CME and environmental resolutions as the planners, and then CME, Delaware Raritan, and environmental resolutions as the consultant engineers. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it. Move it again.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lauer,
Second.
second by Mr. Lenning.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
yes,
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, and the third grouping is for the minor sub and site plan with Mr. Schmitz and Mayor Henry and Steve Mamakis. Ed Lauer, and the master plan is Barbara Cannon, Mayor Henry and Steve Mamakis and Mr. Schmitz. Open space is Casey Lenning, and the LDO committee is Barbara Cannon, Mayor Henry and Steve Mamakis, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Mamakis, and a second
I'll second.
by Mr. Lauer.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renner,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes,
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes. Chairman
Marucci.
Yes. Moving on, we have escrow deficiency resolution 20-01P, the Oaks Development, in the amount of $5,000. Then we have 18-19P, K Hovnanian Old Bridge, in the amount of $2,500 paid. 10-2020P, RD Management Corp., $5,000 paid. 37-2020P, Machaponix Estates, $3,000. And finally, 53-2020P, K Hovnanian Old Bridge, $44,500 paid. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Ms. Cannon, and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Renner. Oh, Mr. Lennon.
Lenning. Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renner,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
yes,
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, now Dawn, the council referral.
The
And-
first one is Nicole.
Thank you. Chairman Marucci, this resolution that's on is for something that was brought by myself in front of council. As the board is aware, every application that comes into town has to comply with our stormwater control ordinance. We want to make sure that your pre and post conditions sort of are in line with each other. Our stormwater management ordinance mimics that of NJDEP. So in 2004, when they came up with their stormwater ordinance, we then mimic that and we review every application in compliance with it. Recently, as in 2018, they came out with revisions for their stormwater ordinance. The idea was to encourage green infrastructure. And by doing so, they're encouraging infiltration into the ground and therefore reducing runoff. A lot of the changes that you see that's in Novus or in your packets have a lot of information that's underlined and bold. That's the new information. And a lot of the information has a strike through the text. A lot of times they're just moving information from one section to the other to make it more user-friendly. But the gist is that they are trying to encourage green infrastructure. And I definitely agree with that, because you don't want to encourage structural BMPs because then there's a lot of maintenance. So they want to encourage green infrastructure, and second, they want to discourage and they want to encourage non-structural stormwater management criteria. And a lot of what I saw in here is an increase in the amount of definitions, because they want to sort of differentiate between impervious cover that has motor vehicles on it, and impervious cover that's sort of clean. When runoff falls on a roof, it's clean runoff as compared to runoff that's coming off of a parking lot, let's say. So they differentiate between those two. Those are the main changes. There's a lot of additional definitions that come into play because of that green infrastructure and the increase in differentiating between impervious cover surfaces. But to be as simple as possible, encouraging green infrastructure, encouraging infiltration into our ground, and using flood control with non-structural measures. are the main gist of the changes, and also the definition of how they define impervious cover in its relation to being, let's say, clean versus not so clean. And if you went through the entire document, you would see that the main gist of the entire sections are just strike throughs, and you could see the new changes in bold. And some sections, it's really, if they take out a section, it affects multiple sections because then we have to renumber or re-letter that section. So if there's any questions on any of the changes, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, anybody on the board have any questions?
I think Vina wanted to add, some statements on the consistency with the master plan.
Good evening, board. So I have reviewed the proposed changes, and although our master plan re-examination report doesn't directly talk about stormwater, in many instances, it does mention that the township will comply or will be consistent with the state's regulations and the county's requirement. So the proposed changes are in sync with what the state wants to propose. Also, last year when I revised the master plan re-examination report and we went through an update, we added language in there that talks about sustainability. Green practices are a part of being more sustainable, and so the proposed changes are in compliance with those recommendations in the master plan.
Okay, Nicole, anything additional or any questions from the board or any?
No, that was it. I mean, if anybody else has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I think tonight then we refer back to council for second ordinance reading, should the board see or look favorably on the changes. And then we adopt 20 days after that concurrence with the council on second reading.
Okay,
Our deadline with the state, incidentally, is March 2nd to at least have that second reading. Our next council meeting is February 23rd, so we are actually meeting the deadline. And Middlesex County has had a copy to review.
you said March 2nd and then February 23rd?
February 23rd is our council meeting. I think the old rules end, I want to say March 2nd, and then March 3rd begins the new rules. So any application that comes in that hasn't been deemed complete as of yet would then have to follow design for the new rules for stormwater management. Anybody that has been deemed complete as an application in front of our planning and zoning board before that date would then be under the old rules. So there's going to be a year of sort of, some people are grandfathered, some people will have to, follow the old rules, some people will have to jump onto the new rules.
Okay. All right, sounds pretty crystal clear. So should we move to a vote? Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gannon and second.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Rana,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
yes,
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, and then we have the second referral is to authorize the planning board to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine whether certain properties qualify for designation as an area in need of redevelopment. So I'm assuming, is that you, Vina?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. So on January 26th, the Township Council passed a resolution authorizing the planning board to undertake an area investigation study for properties mostly along the intersection of Jake Brown Road and US 9 and White Oak Lane and Jake Brown Road. They comprise of 17 properties. And tonight we have our township attorney, Mark Roselli, here, who will fill in board members with the project and the intent behind this. We also have a presentation by Segme following that. So Mark, all yours.
Thanks, Vina. Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'm also, aside from being township attorney, I also represent the redevelopment agency. So I have become very familiar with the project. Ephraim Gersberg, who will be doing a presentation following my introduction, approached the township back in some of my emails, I think September, about project that he was interested in doing in Old Bridge. It involves, as Sabina said, various properties in the area. All those properties have one thing in common. They were owned by the Brunetti organization. And what you'll see tonight is another step in a redevelopment project. Obviously, I think some of the members are familiar with redevelopment because we've been going through that for the last couple of years. And tonight is just an opportunity for the planning board to become familiar with the project itself before Vina makes a formal presentation before the planning board to, when she does her study into the public hearing, to determine whether or not the properties indeed qualify as an area in need of redevelopment. Mr. Gersberg, the entity that's ultimately going to own the property is Segme Old Bridge LLC. It's an urban renewal entity, which under redevelopment law is required to the extent that the entity at some point seeks to have a pilot agreement with the township. That's off to the side. At this point, what Segme has done, they presented to the redevelopment agency back in November. At that time, the redevelopment agency, after hearing the presentation and the project, voted to ask the township council to consider adopting a resolution referring the matter to the planning board to have a public hearing to determine whether or not the properties qualify as an area of redevelopment. Segme next went to the township council in January, Vina? Yes. In January, made a presentation to the council. At that time, the council voted to obviously refer to the planning board to conduct the necessary hearing to determine whether or not the project itself qualifies as an area in need of redevelopment. You know, one of the things that this project, as you'll see, and I certainly won't take anything away from Mr. Gersberg, you'll hear Mr. Gersberg, he's experienced developer. As part of this project, what's unique about it is two things. Number one, what you'll hear is that the lands that were formerly owned, I'm not sure if he closed yet, by the Brunetti organization, had the opportunity to be developed, and if you use underlying zoning, it would translate into thousands and thousands of houses being built. In lieu of those houses being built, Mr. Gersberg is offering to develop various warehouses in an area that, as you'll see, will be pretty much isolated from, well, there's some residential areas, there'll be sufficient buffering. He'll also be making, as part of the project, if in fact it goes forward, certain roadway improvements that are needed in that area to allow for cross transportation for township residents. And then one of the things that you'll also note is that as part of our discussions, when I say our discussion, just so you know, Vina, Nicole, and myself have been very involved in working with Mr. Gersberg's professionals to provide, I'd say, advice as to what we think the township may want, may need, may want to hear. And one of the things that we made very clear to him is that to the extent that there's warehousing and there's truck traffic, there would be no truck traffic going on Route 516 from his project. So he'll review that. He'll also review, I think, some of the improvements that are being proposed as part of the redevelopment if it goes forward. And then another exciting part about this project is that many, many years ago, the township had envisioned building and developing a golf course on properties that have been preserved, called the Rose Lambertson tract. It's approximately 200 plus acres. The township owns it. They acquired most of the properties with Green Acre funds, but there's approximately 9 acres that they didn't use as Green Acres funds. You also hear Mr. Gersberg is also in the golf business, or actually golf course development. He owns some golf courses, but he's very experienced in, as it turned out, in developing and then owning golf courses. So in our discussions with Mr. Gersberg, knowing that that was a project that township had looked to develop, gosh, back in the early 2000s. I think, Barb, I don't know if you were mayor at the time, but certainly I know you're involved with that.
Yes.
That they actually developed or adopted. I don't know if the plan was every development plan ever adopted, Vina, do we know?
Yes, it was.
In which the town had envisioned actually having a golf course built and then leasing the land to a third party who would operate it. When there are discussions with Mr. Gersberg, again, because he has experience in developing golf courses, building golf courses, and operating golf courses, we had indicated to him that as part of this, what we wanted or what the town was looking for is for him to develop that golf course. And the reason is, you'll hear, is that there's an existing golf course that's included as part of the Bernetti property that he will be purchasing and putting warehouses there, which is obviously privately owned. But the Rose Lambertson tract, if it's developed into a golf course, will be owned by the township. Mr. Gersberg is also, it'll include a state-of-the-art 18-hole golf course, a pitch and putt, and a miniature golf provision with some related amenities. With a clubhouse, but not so that you can have weddings or events like that, but to service the golfers. But it's something that the township will continue to own because and then finding, if necessary, a third party to come and operate it for us. But it's something that would come back to the township, something that township residents can utilize, and would seem to be, based upon initial comments and items we've seen from Mr. Gersberg, a huge improvement over the current golf course that is owned and operated by the Brunetti organization. The redevelopment agency voted unanimously to request that the township council proceed with referring the matter to the planning board as an area redevelopment. I believe the council vote was unanimous with one abstention. I can't remember, but certainly it was near unanimous. And everybody and the council, and I think in the redevelopment agency, certainly saw this as an opportunity to bring a form of rateable to the township, at the same time limiting the number of houses that could be built in the future, providing much needed infrastructure, roadway improvements in that part of the township, and then being able to have a golf course, which has been a much needed or desired object of the municipality for some time. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Gersberg has a presentation that he'll slideshow that he'll present to the township planning board, so you have a better feel for what lands are involved, what he proposes. And again, this is the next step in the process. I think a lot of times in redevelopment, there's many tentacles, and it can be a complicated process, but we take one step at a time. Ultimately, to the extent if the lands are determined to be an area need redevelopment, the next step would be to work with Mr. Gersberg and his professionals to develop a redevelopment plan. That redevelopment plan ultimately becomes an ordinance, becomes the zoning ordinance for the lands. Then when that happens, it gets introduced by council, gets referred to the planning board for consistency review, and then comes back to the council for adoption. At the same time, the township, the redevelopment agency will negotiate will be involved in those negotiations, including obviously Vina, Nicole, and myself. And then once that's in place, then the redevelopment entity can proceed with the redevelopment. But again, they still would have to come back to the planning board, so the planning board stays involved, even though this is one of the steps in the process. Ultimately, they have to appear before the planning board once the redevelopment plan is in place for final approval for whatever it is that they develop. So I think at this point, Vina, I think it would be appropriate for Ephraim to take over, unless anybody has any questions for me, or you can wait to the end.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roselli.
Ephraim, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the planning board. Thank you, Mark, for that detailed explanation. I'll delete half my presentation, but the truth is that it was a good background. As Mark said, we are here because the council overwhelmingly approved a resolution to suggest that the planning board study whether this area should be in need of redevelopment. And this is just the first step. I want to make very clear that ultimately I will have to come back if this is successful in an area in need of redevelopment and the redevelopment ordinance is in place. I will still come back to this board probably numerous times to get the site plan approved. So this is just the first step, and ultimately it'll be your decision to approve the project down the line. I'm going to try to share my screen now if I can. Let's see. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just a little bit about 2020. I will only take a minute or so. 2020 Acquisitions is a real estate development company owned by myself. We have a national footprint of developments ranging from residential to assisted living facilities to gas stations from Florida to New Jersey, as well as a media asset that I'll talk about later. Additionally, we own, in conjunction with a company that we formed called Titan Golf, we own two very high-end country clubs on Long Island. And so I'm very familiar with the golf course space, which we'll get into a little bit later. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been very much focused on the warehousing space, and that we're doing developments from Maryland all the way to Massachusetts. And we're currently developing over 10 million square feet of warehousing. Just like to focus on very quickly on 2 projects. This is our Glendale studio. You can see the picture. The reason I mentioned this one is it's a studio for a company called Bunim/Murray. They invented reality TV with the Real World probably 30 years, 25 years ago. The Kardashians, Project Runway, and 30 other TV shows are done here. The reason I mention this project is because it is an example of somewhere where we had a tenant, but it wasn't enough just to give them an asset. We developed this in a way that we were very proud of and spent a lot of time and effort making it a world-class studio. In fact, we've won the redevelopment of the year a number of years ago in Los Angeles County, San Fernando Valley, and this project is the one that won it. Additionally, even with warehousing, where you would think it's a very simple project, we have a project in Franklin Township in Somerset, 50 Veronica Avenue, which was done in conjunction with their economic development team, that although it's a 1 million square foot warehouse, LG took it, the whole building. This also was a finalist for NIOP Deal of the Year award last year. We lost, but it still was a finalist, and shows that we took a little bit more consideration on, if you look at the windows and natural light, this kind of got the attention of people in the industry of spending a little more money for the visual as well. The project that we're talking about here, we spent the last 5 months with the professionals, Vina, Nicole, Mark, and obviously Steve Mamakis, who kind of started it all. And this project is over 750 acres of land owned by the Brunetti organization for over 60 years. And it has never been developed. It's a significant amount of it is wetlands, so non-developable. But, I think it's very important that, we were chosen by Mr. Brunetti, John Brunetti Jr., to be the steward of this land. He doesn't sell land very often, and we don't take that obligation or responsibility lightly. This project is really 4 projects of warehousing coupled with the golf course. And the golf course, as Mr. Roselli mentioned, is going to be an 18-hole state-of-the-art golf course. When looking at the land of the Rose Lambertson site, we realized there was some extra land, and we felt that it was important to open this up to the community at large, not only golfers. And so we managed to tuck away a 9-hole pitch and putt, as well as a miniature golf course on site. What that'll allow people to do is take the family to do some events. It'll also generate over $175,000 of added revenue with almost no expense. So again, in looking at how to make this a profitable endeavor, because I'm going to be building this course, building the infrastructure, and then donating it to the town, it had to be economically feasible for the town. And for that, I've used my expertise in the golf space to try to add family amenities, which are not only enjoyable by your community at large, but also make the whole project a profitable endeavor. The 4 sites that we're talking about, just to orient you, I don't know if you could see my arrow or not. This is Route 9 down the middle, and there are 4 projects. There's A, which is Jake Brown on the southern side or the eastern side, and B is Jake Brown as well, a little south of the A site. The C location is the golf course that is the Glenwood Country Club now, as well as the property over here, which is owned by the Board of Ed and Mr. Bernetti, as well as D, which is the gun club right here behind the golf course. This is over here, White Oak Lane, and this is 516. To be clear, there will be no truck traffic onto 516 at all. I'll show you path of travel and what we're talking about. And this project has a lot of, we've been in really deep discussions with Nicole, who's really stressed that the town has been trying to get down to waterworks for a very long time. It's very expensive, and also it's a little difficult. And we're going to be working with the town to be able to do that. Additionally, right now, White Oak does not connect to Jake Brown South. And because of that, we're also going to be working with the DEP to allow a bridge to cross over some wetlands at a cost of multi-million-dollar project to try to connect White Oak to Jake Brown to alleviate traffic as well. The 3 or 4 benefits to the site and to the project is this is 750 acres. If it was developed for residential like the Oaks, it would be over 2,000 units. So that takes that away. It also gives a over $3 million rateable to the town, which is a very significant amount that goes straight to the town. Additionally, there's obviously the golf course amenity, which we discussed. And finally, there's a lot of infrastructure that we will be doing and we'll be describing tonight. I'd like to just walk you through each of these 4 projects and then the golf course. I'll try to do it pretty quickly. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to be going at A first. So this is Route 9. It's on the northern side of Route 9, and it's right on the north of Jake Brown. Right behind, if you're aware of that commuter parking lot that the Burnettis allow the town members to use, it's right behind that. And so what you'll see in all of, these 2 projects, A and B, which are on the eastern side of Route 9 or on the northern side, the northern traffic side, is that anything behind any residential will be bermed with significant vegetation. You will not be able to see with the sight lines and the vegetation and our berming, the warehouses. That's an important factor. We'll be giving the planning board, when we eventually come to you, sight lines and 3D imaging to show you. Additionally, if there's trees there now, we're not going to take down the trees. We'll obviously berm beyond the trees to add additional vegetation. And because there's a lot of trees and mature trees, we'll be keeping those to keep a buffer between residential and the warehouse. An important factor in showing you over here is the road that leads to Jake Brown. Jake Brown will be improved all the way till about here, till about halfway down, and then it will end. You will not be able to cut through to Cottrell Road or go near the residences there. It will remain unpaved, and there will be no way to get there. It will basically dead end, making a left into this project and making a right into the other project, and therefore there will be no way to cut through to Cottrell Road nor disturb any of the residential residences along Jake Brown. This is the preliminary blocking of the site plan. And as you'll see, there'll be a warehouse here, some parking toward the east, and again, all buffering and vegetation along the residential side of the road. Next, we're going to be going to B below, and B is, this is the A over here. B is to the south, and essentially it's the same thing coming in over here. There's a JCP&L huge easement that we will not be disturbing, and there will be a large berming and buffering behind the residential. The layout again is not touching the easement that is here, with significant room from the residential. It's probably over 500 feet, maybe even more to the building, could be over 700 feet to the building from the residential area. So we're quite a bit away, and with berming, you will not be able to see that warehouse at all. Moving forward to project C, and that is the golf course, as well as the Board of Ed property over here to the side, as well as Jake Brown. It's very important to know that Jake Brown is not a smooth road over there. With Nicole's guidance and in discussion with our engineers, we're going to realign Jake Brown to be a little bit better, wider, and we will be responsible for all the expenses related to paving and doing that. So essentially, if you're seeing Jake Brown, you'll come off of Jake Brown, and then it'll be a soft turn over here instead of what the existing one is now. And so what you'll see is it comes over here, Jake Brown's goes to here, and this is the White Oak extension we discussed before. There is no road from here, halfway down White Oak, all the way to here. And it's a significant heavy lift with the DEP, but we'll be trying to do that with the town's help and the town being the applicant. And again, it's about a $3 million bridge to cross that area. And that will allow traffic to flow away from 516 and use Jake Brown. Additionally, as you see here to the left of White Oak and farther down Jake Brown, that's a road that does not exist. And we will be working with the town to extend that to Waterwork Road and alleviate some traffic as well there. That is a very significant financial investment of millions of dollars. And we're going to be working with the town to do that as well. And here you see 5 buildings, one along Jake Brown, the other 4, 2 smaller buildings here, a larger building here, and a 5th building here. And these will light or come out to Jake Brown, so there will be no traffic going to 516. Here you see the layout. Again, they're set over here with a loop road through the project around to Fairway and out to Fairway, with the road back to Jake Brown in the back. So again, there's a lot of traffic that is avoiding 516. In general, these projects are, the first question we get is, this is an Amazon site. It is not set up for a fulfillment center. You would see thousands of parking spots for cars, and you don't see that here. This is a distribution, traditional industrial distribution, which, believe it or not, generates a lot less than residential traffic. Additionally, it's much more off-peak. The truck drivers do not want to come in during the peak time. And the final project is the current gun club, and that is a 1-building project. The flow is interesting. It comes out to White, but will turn. I'll show you in a minute. Will turn into the other project, so that there will be no traffic allowed beyond that point to of truck traffic to 516. And just showing you the outline, it comes over here and flows into the golf course. Finally, and I know I'm moving quickly because this is just a general concept, and I know I'll be here to answer questions, but also we have a lot of presentations we'll have to be doing in front of your board. Last is the Rose Lambertson site, and that is just to give you an idea. Here is Route 9. A and B are the eastern side, the northern side of Route 9, and here's the Rose Lambertson. It's on the corner of Lambertson and Amboy, and these are the 3 lots and blocks. And this will be an 18-hole golf course. We're still working on the layout. We hope to present to the town within the next 2 weeks some alternatives so the town can give me guidance on which way to go. But it'll be a full 18-hole course, par 71 or par 72. We're working on that, as well as a miniature golf for families and a pitch and putt. It'll also have a driving range. The reason I mentioned the driving range is it's a very important revenue stream, generating usually $100,000 plus in revenue, and is a key component to the profitability of this investment. Again, I would thank Steve Mamakis, who started this whole project. God, it almost feels like a year ago, and has really been guiding us along the way, as well as the professionals who, Vina, Nicole, and Mark Roselli have been, I can't express to you how many hours they've put in and really guiding us on what to do and what not to do, what's important to the town, what it is, and have gotten millions of dollars of infrastructure added to the project, which we're happy to do and happy to give back. We try to give back in every project that we do. So again, that's the project at a 10,000-foot view. We'd be back in front of this planning board for site plan approval, of course. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, any questions from the board professionals?
None at this time.
Okay, how about the board itself? Any questions or comments?
Yes. Where all the traffic is going to go on 9, basically?
Not all 9. We're going to work toward putting it also back toward Waterworks, which is back out to the back of Old Bridge, and that would head toward 18 as well. And that would be the goal. The goal would be to split the traffic back and forth, but a lot of it will go up Route 9. The good part about this is, although it's not at the northern part of Old Bridge, it is, heading up and out to that area. But I can tell you that the traffic patterns of, and we'll get into this in site plan approval, the traffic patterns of trucks are primarily non-peak. A typical warehouse here ranges only from about 50 to about 200 employees maximum, depending on the size of each one. But a lot of them are going to be somewhere between 50 and 200. That's it.
Okay, I have another question. The purchase of Lambertson was done under Green Acres, and it was when I happened to be mayor, but we really, we're very gung-ho about developing into a golf course, and we ran into some issues, economic, environmental, and then we were told that golf was no longer a hot thing. Is it back?
Golf last year was the hottest it's probably ever been, but that was because of COVID. Unfortunately, everyone saw golf as the respite and the ability to get out without. So the rounds last year were up by over 20 to 30% from before. But more importantly than that, even if it wasn't, this is a viable project because, first of all, most golf, when it's challenged, is because it costs a lot of money to build the golf course. This is probably over $8 million. When you add the debt of $8 million and add that in, it becomes a hard sell. You're going to start off with zero debt because I'm going to be building it all. I'm going to be gifting it to the town. So the answer is that golf is back a lot, but this project has so many different components that it's really set up for success. And that was a very important thing for me. Being in the golf course business, I have the ability and understanding of what the drivers are to key revenue points.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, so I understand it correctly, is this going to be a county course or a public or private course?
It's going to be a township-owned public
course.
Mr. Marucci, at this point, right, I mean, it's the property is owned by the town, it'll continue to be owned by the township. So obviously we have the ability to control how that occurs. It's our land, Old Bridge's land, and then the idea or the goal is to get it developed because it hasn't been developed thus far. And then we have the ability then to bring a third party in to operate it for the township.
So it will be a public course?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. And no involvement from the county at all?
No.
Okay.
We don't need the county's help.
Okay.
No.
Well, just so I understand it correctly.
Yep.
And then what about the gun club? The gun club is going to forego their property? I know they don't own it. They lease-
If I could, hold on for a second. So it's not that, obviously the gun club doesn't own the property.
Correct, right. They don't own,
Their property's owned by the Brunetti organization.
but they've leased it, correct?
I'm not sure what their, my understanding, it might be a handshake. I'm not sure of the details of that.
There's a lease in place, but that lease is exterminatable by Mr. Brunetti, and he's indicated he would. But having said that, I want to be very clear. I am working on trying, outside of this conversation, now that's still the infancy, trying to find another location for them. I think I will be successful. And that is really because, you know, I would like to see them be able to relocate. And I have some ideas, and we're working with the town to just work on.
Right, just so you know, that being said, because obviously they have their, whatever the Gov Club's relationship is with the Brunetti organization, they have their agreement, they'll have to deal with that. But one thing we did do in speaking to Ephraim is that, knowing that was a possibility that they would have to, that their lease would end, is that we indicated that we would like to see it as part of this overall project, provide an alternative site for the gun club. And so we've been discussing with Ephraim alternative location on property that the township owns that may be able to widen who utilizes it, but ensuring that the gun club, their members and whoever's a member are able to use that as well. So that's been part of our discussion. The township hasn't forgotten them, and we've approached Mr. Gersberg about alternatives, even presenting some options on property that's owned by the township, which if it works out, I think that's another situation that could be a win-win.
Have we approached?
I think this is an example. I apologize, Chairman. I think there's an example where we're working together hand in hand. In other words, we understand that they're a focal point of the town. They're, been there for a long time, and it's not something that we take lightly. And the professionals and I have been working together. Even though it's not our responsibility, we're trying.
Has anybody approached the gun club and entered into preliminary discussions with them?
Our attorney reached out last week to their attorney. Yes.
Okay, were they receptive? Or do you know?
Yeah, they would like to continue, and it's still very preliminary. I don't want to, but yes, they would like to be relocated. They would like to be involved. They would like to stay in an organization. They made it very clear they'd like to stay in an organization that can control their own, and we're going to work on that with them.
Okay, excellent. Okay, anything else?
Chairman Marucci, I have a question.
Yes.
Uh,
Lauer.
Mr. Gertzberg, do you have any plans for the Lamberson house, or what's going to happen to on the Lamberson property?
That's the one that's actually, if you look at I assume that's the one that's at 1.12, where you see lot 1.1.
That's
sits
correct.
right on top of it.
Yeah.
We were going to replace it with a clubhouse. It looked in disrepair when I was there. A tree had fallen right near it. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but it's kind of, I don't think safe, but it's a tree. Again, there were limbs falling around it. So, but I'm happy to discuss it with you.
I guess you're saying it's history.
It's hard to save it. It's broken out. It's if you look at the foundations cracking, I don't think it's pretty safe. I wouldn't want to go in there. I didn't.
Yeah.
It's been said.
Eddie, Steve, and Max, when we were up there, it does look. I mean, I've been monitoring it for years and going up the path there, but it's really in disarray now. Maybe just saving the foundation or something. But and Mr. Gertzberg and I looked at it. It's just deteriorated so far. It's just until you get in there, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, can I just add something? I know that when we were looking to develop that area, and I mean, it is a number of years ago, I think even then that it was questionable about the structure, but we were going to use it. I mean, we were going to try to redo it and make it a sort of an accessory building. I don't know if that's still possible, but.
Now that I've heard this, let me go back and look at the routing of the holes. I know there are holes right around there in the initial routing. But let me look. Maybe, I've seen the windmills in the middle of golf courses. So, we could, it may be an amenity. But again, let me look at it at least.
Would you see me drive, Ephraim?
What? Yeah,
said you've
you may
seen-
take out a few windows.
You said you've seen windmills on golf course. You've seen me driving?
Make it part of the mini golf course.
There may be a windmill or something on the mini golf course, but I'm not sure in the middle of the fairway. It's a good idea.
Maybe you could shoot some hole, so many mini golf holes right through the place, so it'll be on the other side. So it's an amenity. There you go.
Okay, any input or questions from anyone else?
No,
I just have one more. With the architectural, are you looking to do that, a similar kind of architectural in all the buildings, or just the ones that are more visible? Are they all good, you know? are they
No,
gonna have-
no, we do them all, even though they're not visible, the tenants appreciate. It's funny, tenants now ask for it. I'm about to sign a lease. I bought a property from Rutgers University, and we're about to complete a 700,000 square foot warehouse. It's amazing. The tenants really want a look. They don't want to just walk into a square. So even if you can't see it, I still do the same high-end architecture anyway. It's really, for me, it's really pride, and so that's the reason I do it.
Okay, thank you.
the only thing that I wanted to add, I think when Mr. Gertzberg and his firm came in front of council, I think the one thing that jumps out is the fact that we will be losing the ability to build, let's just say, 1,000 houses. And I think it's more than that, right? So we take that strain away from our school system. We take that strain away from our roads. I think this is a great project. The township is going to get a golf course out of it, a pitch and putt, as well as a mini golf. I think it's something that will bring a lot of joy to a lot of folks, young, old, and indifferent of whether you play golf. I think most people, even if you don't play golf, you will play mini golf. And the fact that it is in town, owned by town, it's a great rateable and hopefully a revenue source for the town for years and years to come.
And one last point, Steve Mamakis here. Just want to thank Mr. Gertzberg for seeing the vision and investing here in our township. I know we're still in the concept and preliminary phases, but just looking at the overall scope and touching upon what Councilman De Palma just said, this is a win-win for our community and the township. So again, thank you, Mr. Gertzberg, for just even entertaining the thought of doing this size and scope of project here in our town.
Thank you for all your help, really.
Well said. Well said. Okay, and Mr. Gertzberg, if I can ask, can you cease
Stop sharing?
your screen share so we can get back? There you go. Excellent.
Yeah,
I can
thank
see
you.
everybody's bright, smiling faces. Okay, so we're going to take this to a motion. If nobody
I'll
else,
move it.
okay, moved by.
What are they moving, Vina?
What are we authorizing here?
I don't think you're authorizing anything, are they?
But
No.
it's a resolution
This was just to
authorizing the plan.
introduce us.
It's a resolution authorizing me to conduct the area investigation study.
Okay.
I'll move it.
I just have a correction before we vote on it. I was looking at the draft, and one correction which we actually did at the council meeting as well was in the resolution, it shows lot 42.13 twice, and in quotes it says proposed. So that needs to come out and be replaced with lot 42.12. There is no proposed lot within the study area. It's lot 42.12 instead. That's it.
Oh, Dean, can I just ask another question?
Sure.
What does the study, what is the study going to do?
So basically, when I conduct the study, I will evaluate it against the local housing and redevelopment law and see if the sites, individual sites, meet the redevelopment criteria. Once a site meets a redevelopment criteria, then the planning board can designate the area as in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation.
Okay, so you're just going to go over the
So
criteria.
it is a requirement of the local housing and redevelopment law.
Okay.
So Barbara, just to follow up on Vina, so right? So if you're authorizing Vina to continue, she will do a study. You need to have a public hearing on the study, and then at that public hearing, the planning board would vote to depending on what the report says. If it says it's whether or not it meets the requirements of the redevelopment law that meets the criteria for an area redevelopment, and then if that's the case, and the planning board would vote as part of that resolution, it then recommends the council to designate the properties as an area need redevelopment. And then council adopts a resolution saying, yes, we agree to planning board, this is an area need redevelopment, and then we're on our way to do the redevelopment plan.
Okay, but would that wed us to this presentation basically, or once it's designated as redevelopment at?
It's council who, it is actually council who determines to designate it as an area redevelopment after the planning board conducts a public hearing on the study that Vina is going to do to see if it meets the criteria. I mean, Vina could do a study and say it doesn't meet the criteria. Sorry, everybody goes home. Or she does a study that says it does meet the criteria, do the public hearing, the planning board then votes on whether or not to make that referral recommendation to the township council to designate as an area needed redevelopment. So the answer to your question is no, it does not, and the vote that you take tonight does not either. Because you don't know what the study is going to say until it's conducted and you have a public hearing. So nobody's getting married.
Okay.
All right, my apologies for pushing it to vote without a proper summary. So if we all are on board, I'll put it to vote. And do I have a motion? Mr. Mamakis?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Mamakis, and a second? Second by
Petty.
Mr. Petty. Thank you, guys.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
I'll vote yes at this stage.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes.
Thank you. Chairman, I'm going to sign off. I think I'm seeing an executive session though.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Take care. Okay, next on the agenda, we move to the resolutions. And the first is the resolution consistency review of ordinance 2021-01, rescinding and replacing 250-78 entitled Stormwater Management of the Land Development Code of the Township of Old Bridge. So now, do we have to have a discussion on this, or do we just go to a vote?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Robertson for Joe. The discussion, I think, has already taken place. This is authorizing the consistency determination to be forwarded and referred back to the council, confirming that the ordinance that's been reviewed is consistent with the master plan. And you already heard comments from the planner this evening.
Okay, Vina, do we have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so we'll put it to vote. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Mr. Lauer, and a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cannon.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, and the second is the resolution of the Township of Old Bridge Planning Board authorizing the township planner to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine
did
whether. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dean, I think we just did that. I think we jumped the ship a little.
Okay, so this is one and the same?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think this is the written memorialization of the approval that was previously voted on. This is authorizing the planning board to undertake that preliminary investigation to determine whether it's an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation. And I think a vote was already taken on the resolution. So
Underneath the council referral.
that's, yeah, I think we already did the.
Okay. Yeah, there was no lot and block on the prior, so I wasn't sure that they were the same thing. Okay, so we did that. Okay, very good. So then the next, we move on to a discussion regarding the 2021 planning board meeting schedule. Okay, is that Dawn?
I think it's Vina. Joe had issues with the dates, so we had to move them. So we actually moved them to the first meetings in the month again. And we just needed to check with the board to make sure that you guys were okay with those dates.
Everybody have a copy of it?
Chairman, if you don't mind, can we move this to towards the end of the meeting, because Mr. Sardello will be joining us in the second half. So I think it would be better if we have this discussion at that time.
Okay, all right, very good. So we'll move that when Mr. Sordillo comes on. Okay. Moving on to continuous and completeness waivers. The first is 01-2021P, Bright Point Housing. And they're requesting waivers on items 38D, 38E, 38F, and 39B. And that's a continuance, correct?
Is that a continuance? Oh.
This is being asked to be bumped to the March meeting.
Okay,
So that's why it's listed as a continuance. We're not doing that one right now. We're moving that to the March meeting.
okay.
Can you just tell us where that is located on 34?
It's across from the new La Dolce Vita at the traffic light where the intersection is, the pharmacy is on 34. So where the pharmacy, after the car wash, you have the pharmacy going towards Route 9.
Okay, the pharmacy on the triangle?
The pharmacy on the triangle, once you get past the pharmacy on the triangle, the
Are we going
traffic light
south or north?
going north. So let's say you're going north, going towards Route 9, and you pass the traffic light at the triangle where was that Spring Hill Road comes out.
Okay,
Yes.
It's right after the traffic light on the southbound side. There's like a house up on that hill there. That's where they're proposing this particular housing apartments, multifamily apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Don't forgive me, do we vote on this?
No,
Not
that's-
on, we don't have to vote on the
continuance. Okay. Okay, and the next
continuance of the
one,
waivers, but we will on RD management.
okay. So the next continuance is, in fact, RD Management 10-2020P. And they're looking to move to March 2nd. Okay, so you say we vote on this one?
Yes,
Okay, do I have a motion for that?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lauer, and a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Palmer.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning. Unmute, Casey.
Yes. There you go.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes.
Chairman Marucci, I just want to make an announcement because I know there are a lot of residents that have been anxiously waiting for the hearing on this application. And I just want to inform everybody that a notice with the meeting details for this application for the next month will be put on our township's website. A notice will be sent out. There will be new meeting dates. So a meeting in ID and password. So it should be on the township's website a week before the meeting, and they should be getting notices in their mail as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's move on to our first application, which is 12-2020P, Barbara Home Improvements.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your professional staff, and members of the public listening. My name is Peter Klauser. I'm an attorney with the firm Heilbrunn Pape. I represent Bamra Home Improvements with regard to this and other applications they presented to this board before. Mr. Chair, this is an application for a minor subdivision to create 2 lots out of 1 for 2 single-family homes. The property is in an unusual area in Old Bridge, located near Maple, in between Marlboro Road and Route 18. And there's an area there where there is a development pattern of properties having 2 frontages and 2 axes, one onto Marlboro Road and one onto Route 18. This is currently a through lot, which has frontage on both Route 18 and Marlboro Road. And the applicant is proposing a minor subdivision to have 1 house facing Route 18, similar to some of the neighbors, and then 1 house facing Marlboro Road, also similar to some of the neighbors. And Allison Coffin, the applicant's professional planner, will get into more detail with regard to that and the development pattern. The lot is undersized as to width. That's just the way that the lot exists already. So that's the variance relief that's requested by the applicant. It's 87 feet wide and the zone calls for 100. You'll actually note when we see it, there's a number of lots along this area that are all 87 feet wide. I don't know why, but that's how the number ended up. So just by its very nature, to do anything on this property, you need variance relief for lot width. And then when we cut the lots in half, the zone requires 15,000 square feet for the lot, and the lots will be undersized. With that being said, however, the applicant's proposed development on the lot, both as to the landscaped area ratio, floor area ratio, and all of the setbacks, no variance relief is required for either lot. So that lots can be developed, houses can be developed on the property without requiring any relief from your setbacks or your coverage standards. So that is respected. The application is presented this evening to the board through 2 witnesses, Adnan Khan, who's the applicant's professional engineer, and then Allison Coffin, the applicant's professional planner. If I could, Mr. Chair, the application's been deemed complete. We noticed for the hearing, which was carried because of the snow that we had. And I would ask if Mr. Khan could unmute himself, turn his camera on, and be sworn by your attorney.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Khan, do you solemnly swear testimony you give to this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you please state your full name, spell your last name for the record?
Adnan Khan, Khan.
Mr. Khan, could you just share, have you testified in front of this board before?
Yes, I did.
Most recently in front of the board as a minor subdivision that we did on West Avenue, is that correct?
That is correct.
If you could just share with your board your license, your professional affiliation, and your educational background. And Mr. Chairman, board members, I'm asking that Mr. Khan be accepted as a professional engineer.
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, master's degree in construction management, professional engineers in 4 states, including New Jersey. Been working for almost 30 years, currently employed by AWZ Engineering, and I'm the engineer of record for this project.
Okay, accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Sawant, there's our, do you have our cover sheet that you could bring up just so we could get a look at the key map?
Sure. This is the first sheet.
Yeah, just sheet number 1.
Yeah.
Adnan, if you could, utilizing sheet number 1 and the key map that's on the right side as I'm looking at my screen, just identify for the board where this property is located, as I indicated, between Highway 18 and Marlborough Road near Maple Street.
Correct. If you look at the text map, it is the current property or the property in question is lot 152.11. And as you can see, it is a through lot between Marlborough Road and State Highway 18. It is a pretty rectangular, undersized lot, undersized as far as the lot width is concerned under the existing condition. And if you look at the lots adjacent to it to the east, they are similar pattern with like lots accessing from Marlborough Road, and there are some lots that are direct access from Route 18.
And on the tax map, I had stated earlier, but just to get it on the record, the lots to on either side of us, a number of them are actually also 87 feet in width. Is that correct?
That is correct. Actually, all the a couple, two adjacent lots on either side of our lot, they are 87 feet in width.
And this unusual shape of sort of that diamond pattern that kind of cuts off the two lots that are to the left of us that you're looking at, that's the right of way of New Jersey State Highway Route 18, which leads into where there's the light in the intersection for Maple Road.
That is correct, yes.
And that sort of makes our lot the last squared off lot, and the two lots next to us kind of, they have the unfortunate nature of being cut off by the right of way.
That is right, yes.
So Ms. Sawant, maybe if we can go back to that last exhibit, and let's describe what this exhibit is. And then this one, I think we should mark, Mr. Robertson, as A1, because this was an exhibit submitted to demonstrate bump outs in the driveways that could be created. So this is not in the plan sheet.
Okay. And can you identify specifically what it is before we mark it?
Yes, please. Adnan, just give a brief description of what this is and why we sent this into the board.
Okay, this is an exhibit as marked on the plan. It's EX01, which is exhibit 1. And this exhibit was prepared after we submitted our initial plans and we received the engineering and planning comments, especially requesting the driveway and the turnaround on the side rather than for the cars to back up directly onto, respectively, onto Marlborough Road or Route 18.
So for purposes of identifying very simply for Mr. Roberts, this is A1, and it is the driveway turnaround exhibit. Is that fair to call it that?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The plan pretty much shows all the information exactly the way it is on the plans that were submitted. It still shows a subdivision along the center of the existing lot, dividing into two lots, one fronting on Marlborough Road, the other one fronting on Route 18. Both of them will have single family dwellings on them, which complies with all the setback requirements after the subdivision. There was a driveway, as I said, originally when we laid it out, this subdivision, we had the driveway coming out straight onto Route 18 or Marlborough Street. And as the comments we received from the engineering and planning, it asked us to explore if we can create a turnaround within the site for the cars leaving from these new lots, new subdivided lots. And this is the exhibit that shows that the car can make the maneuver within the property rather than backing up to the streets.
Okay, you provided a great deal of information there, Mr. Khan. So the two lots that are created as part of this development, you indicated can support the single family homes that are proposed to be constructed without any bulk variance setback relief or coverage relief. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that was the way you originally designed it, with just a traditional driveway.
That is right.
And we received review reports from your engineer and your planner in advance, Mr. Chair and board members, from your planner and your engineer in advance of the meeting that was to occur. I think it was February 2nd when we were going to have that meeting.
Yes.
And in that, one of the things they asked was can you create a turnaround area so that vehicles can safely turn around on the site? And because of the delay in the snow, we had time to create an exhibit to present to this board, which is what you're looking at this evening. And what I'd like to point out, Adnan, in adding the extra pavement and pushing the house back a little bit, I think you pushed each house back about 9 feet of extra driveway, and then width that you've added. In doing that, you're still able to respect the landscaped area ratio standard in the township zone?
That is correct. Yes.
We have enough room to add that. Overage is a little bit in the reverse, where we have a landscaped area ratio instead of calling it impervious coverage. But in adding this extra area on the lot for the turnaround to accommodate the good comment from the engineers, we're able to stay within that landscaped area ratio.
That is correct. And I just want to explain that also, like the impervious coverages that have been going to be added on these lots. We are also designing a stormwater system, a dry well system, an infiltration system that is going to support, or that's going to carry all the water from the newly created impervious surfaces into the dry well system, and it will take care of any stormwater runoff, additional stormwater runoff from the site.
Oh, thank you. If I could, I want to use the professional report that we received, Adnan, to just take you through a couple of questions that were raised in the report, and we can talk about. Shown on your plan as information given to you by the applicant and the applicant surveyor is a 20-foot wide utility easement that comes out from Marlborough Road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that in the reports, they've asked if that utility easement can be identified by meets and bounds, and if an easement can be created, which will be dedicated to the OBMUA for maintenance of the utilities that are located in that easement, namely water and sewer lines. And we can accommodate that request, and we can include those meets and bounds descriptions and create an easement.
Sure, we can, yes.
Okay. And that easement does in fact allow access to the utilities for our neighboring lot there. I can't read it, pulled out in Nicole's comment. But we can, that neighbor who has frontage on Route 18 will have access to the utilities that are inside that easement.
That is right.
And I found it, it's 153.12. So I just want to get that on the record. That was a request from Ms. Shapiro in her report. There's a driveway that goes out onto Route 18, and both Ms. Sawan and Ms. Shapiro asked if the slope for the driveway could be reduced to get closer to that 6% grade, and you think you have some room out there to do that?
Yes, we can do some regrading in the area, maybe create some small walls in the area, but we can absolutely flatten that grades as close as possible to 6% as recommended.
Okay. This subdivision is to be filed by a deed, but you understand that there is still a requirement to provide a compliant plat to the township so that they can have it on record.
That is correct, yes.
And you've seen Ms. Sawan's comments in the report about the items that need to be corrected on the plan and added to create a plat, and you're comfortable that you can do that?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Comments in the reports about the trees, we'll have to work with Mr. Lavallo's office, which we will do. And there was also a request that you look at the list of plants that Rutgers says are more deer resistant. We have no issue with working with both Mr. Lavallo and Ms. Sawan and Ms. Shapiro to achieve better plantings out there.
Yes, we can accommodate their request, not a problem.
Okay. Marlborough Road is under the jurisdiction of the county. However, we applied to the county, and the county has actually waived jurisdiction over this project. Is that correct?
That is right.
So we do not anticipate, because they've waived jurisdiction, that the county will require a right-of-way dedication for Marlborough Road, so that would not increase any of the variance relief that's requested for the undersized nature of the lot. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have that waiver letter, Mr. Chair and members of the board, from the county. I've submitted it. In fact, I submitted it, I think, about a week or so ago, again, in response to the review comments that we received. To get into, just very briefly, into some of the technical comments, Adnan, that came from, I would imagine, Ms. Shapiro, about adding some more detail to the plans with regard to the soils, percolation tests, and ground floor or basement elevations. You have no issue with any of those comments? You think those are all achievable?
Yeah, I believe like, yeah, we can do it. We haven't done the soil investigation, of course, because of the weather conditions. But it is the intent that as soon as the weather breaks, we are planning to do the investigation, and we will provide all that information. And if we have to redesign the houses or the drainage system, we can work with those parameters later on, and that can be a condition of approval.
Yes, and that's important that you say that this is not something we're asking to be deferred to plot plan should the board grant this. This is going to be something that we're going to do and show to Ms. Shapiro and Ms. Sawant before they actually approve these plans to move on to a possible plot plan.
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions or comments of Mr. Khan with regard to this application. He's available to the board and your professionals for comments. Like I indicated, our second witness will be Ms. Coffin with regard to the planning testimony.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clauser. Thank you, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from our board professionals or any comments?
Chairman Marucci, I just had, so Mr. Clauser, am I understanding it correctly? Then the engineering comments that you haven't spoken about tonight, you will comply with?
Yeah, there are no issues, Nicole. I just thought it was very important to point out about the basements and the soils that we're going to do that as part of this plan compliance and not attempt to defer it. But
okay.
Adnan, you have no issues with any of the other technical comments, correct?
No, not at all.
Mr. Khan, is there an application in front of DOT for access management? Is there an existing driveway on that 18? I don't think there is, right? There's no curb cut there now.
No, you are correct. There is no curb cut. We have initiated an application with DOT, and their response was, I would say, at least 6 or 7 months back, that they don't see any issue providing us the access for the new house or for the new subdivided house. But they want us to go through the township process to get the approval first before they can look into basically granting us the access. So I have a communication, both verbal and through email from DOT, and they are aware of this project, but they are waiting for the township decision before they can act on it.
Okay. As for the driveway, as for the turnaround, I'd rather see you keep, you know, that I think it's 20 feet wide. You had that line continuing right down straight to the structure itself, but now you created sort of a wider driveway as you got closer to the home for that length of 30.78 feet. Typically what we just do is keep that straight line and just key out probably the width of 10 feet and the depth of 10 feet. And I think that would save you on just that additional impervious cover. And I only say to do it that way because what if the homeowner wants to put a patio in the back? It's better to spend that additional impervious cover somewhere else on the property than to create that radius and to come down and widen it that length for 30 feet. You know, you understand, Mr. Khan, what I'm saying?
Yes, I believe the way, if I understand you correctly, you just need like a bump out.
Like a bump out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, we can do that. And as you write, like it will reduce the impervious coverage for any future improvements if the homeowner wants it.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort on doing it now before, as an exhibit during the meeting. I'm going to wait until the planner's testimony just for any additional comments. Vina and I were talking about this project in depth and about the lot areas and not meeting the land development ordinance as far as lot area. But I'd rather wait until I hear testimony from the planner on that one. And that's it for me, Mr. Marucci.
Great, thank you. Vina or anyone else?
I have no comments at this time. I'll wait for the planner to testify.
Okay, any questions from the board members?
I have a question, Chairman.
Steve?
Working with our engineers, that circulation on that driveway, taking into account that it might be a trivial question, but what happens in that driveway if we get this amount of snow? How does that, there's a circulation plan? And I was trying to read the plans there. Is that for the one that butts against Route 18, if I think that's what I saw? So if we got this 20 inches of snow again, how does that come into play? Or is it just a standard sized driveway? It's a little bit wider for circulation. So that's my question.
First of all, like if you look at the plans, we have a lot of green area around the driveway. So there is a lot of room to pile up the snow from the driveway, or not on the driveway itself or to the right of way of the streets, but within the grass area or the green area. That is usually typical a homeowner does, like they just blow up the snow towards the side. And as Ms. Shapiro mentioned, again, like that bump out we are talking about, that will further reduce some of the impervious coverage. So I think we'll have more green area available for any snow storage in case of severe storms.
Okay, thank you. I was just concerned about cars backing up onto Route 18 or parking closer to Route 18 if there was too much snow in the area. I just really couldn't tell how large it was from the photo here. Thank you.
Yeah, Adnan, what's the distance of the driveway from the front property? What's the distance of the, I'm sorry, from the front property line, which is basically covered by driveway, Mr. Mamakis? But how long is that? That's actually pretty deep. That's 50 feet, is it, shown on the plan?
Actually, to our property line, if I'm looking at Route 18 side, from property line to the front of the house is 40 feet. Then my estimate is like another 50 feet of asphalt going to the Route 18 curb cut. So you're talking about 110 feet. And then if you look at the area around it, it's all green area. So again, when you're cleaning your driveway, you try to push the snow towards the side on the green areas. So I think we have enough room for safe maneuvering of the vehicles in and out from the streets, as well as room to pile up the snow in case of severe snowstorm.
And Mr. Mamakis, the design that was suggested by your professionals is a good one, and it's to very much avoid that circumstance where someone would have to back out onto 18. We're creating on the site the ability to turn your car around and come out forward.
Okay, that was just my concern. Great, thank you.
Now, kind of to piggyback on what Steve brought up, if we have multiple cars parking in the driveway, what kind of impact will that have on cars turning around to get out? If it's used as kind of a quasi parking lot.
It's the way I look at it, it's a typical single family home driveway. So this is a condition that you see throughout, like any single family home with a driveway with multiple cars. So however they maneuver, and the thing what we are doing is like we are providing them a turnaround area. So it's a matter of habit, like how they park, to understand, okay, during the snowstorm, maybe they park face out or something like that. So, but again, I believe like usually it's not advisable or it's not wise to back up on state highway. So I think it's more like it's a habit or like how the homeowner will react to it. But I think like we have room enough.
I'm sorry, Nate.
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it wasn't back out onto the highway to get out of the parking lot. It was cars backing up. So many cars, as Dean is saying, park in that area that the cars are starting to back up out onto 18, but not back out onto 18. I mean, it's just in general. But the plan was just too small for me to see on the on the screen here, so I couldn't really tell the size of scope of it. But that explains.
Yeah. Again, I just like to explain a little bit better. Like we have a 2-car garage. Then we have approximately 20-25 feet wide driveway. So in typical single family home, let's say if they have 3 cars or 4 cars even. So the 2 cars will be in the garage and 2 cars can just park one behind the other as a tandem. So they have to leave enough room for them to maneuver within the driveway.
So the residents will have a 2-car garage?
What is that?
The dwelling will have a 2-car garage?
Yes.
Okay.
Each, yeah.
Okay. And do we know how, I know in some sections of 18, the shoulder is wide on 18. Do you know how wide the shoulder is in front of that driveway cut? the proposed driveway?
No, actually, we don't have that information on the survey,
Okay.
but I believe that there is, actually, no, I don't want to say anything because I don't have that information handy.
Okay.
I'm looking at it now, Dean, on Google Earth, and it's standard size shoulder there. It's almost a car width, roadway width.
So if somebody had to in a pinch back out, there's at least a little bit of a shoulder to deal
Oh,
with.
yeah, there's plenty there,
Okay,
from what I see.
okay. All right, anybody else have any questions and comments before we move on to the next witness?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Lenning?
So I drive up and down 18 pretty much every day on my way home from work. And over the last few months, I noticed it seems like there's been some improvements to the property. All of a, it's hard to tell now because of the snow cover, but all of a sudden this property stands out because this bright orange soil, and then if you look at the lots to the north of it, they're covered with underbrush and, they look natural. All of a sudden this property looked like it was cleared. Was any work done to the land or any soil added to this property prior to us looking at it?
I'm not aware of it, but I think this is more of a question for the applicant. But the last time when I was there, it was all natural. I haven't been there recently, so I'm not aware of that.
About when was the last time you were on the site?
I would say at least it's 6-7 months ago, maybe a little bit more.
Gotcha.
So Casey, does it look like it was stripped or that fill was brought in, material was brought in?
I don't exactly know. I just noticed one day driving home, there's this bright orange soil all over the property and there's no underbrush left, so.
Mr. Lenning, if I may interject, Chairman Marucci, the site did receive a tree removal permit for sanitary construction on site for utilities. And that utilities is going to be stored by an easement shared by a few of the lots. One of the comments that I had on the plan that I think Mr. Clauser had addressed before was that he's going to provide us with the deeds and descriptions for that easement and who it's going to be dedicated to, one being OBMUA because there's a sanitary line there. So they did initiate with my office a tree removal application. And I want to say, you know what, it seems like yesterday, I don't want to say a time frame because it feels like yesterday, but it might've been like a year ago. But I do have recent pictures of the site based on a site visit and it appeared that everything looked okay.
So, Ms. Shapiro, that work was for the entire site or for the easement?
It was, if you were standing on Marlborough Road and you were looking at, Vina, do you have that plan up? Because the plan shows the easement area. Because I have to recall the tree permit, and what I could do is when she puts up the plan and we discuss it a little bit, I could certainly look while we're discussing the application on what the area of the tree removal permit had included. Okay, so you see the 20-foot utility easement to the left. So when you're standing on Marlborough, it's on the left side of the property.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the construction had occurred there's a sanitary manhole at the end of there. I believe they're looking to, feed these two homes. And I believe one of the properties adjacent to this, and I feel like it's 153.11, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, because I think the applicant on this owns that lot as well. And that's why I said it has to be a little bit more clearer in one of the comments on who this easement is going to be dedicated, because one of my first questions, and Vina, if you could scroll the page down so I could see more towards 18. No, scroll it. Yeah. So you could see that the easement bumps into the proposed lot on the Route 18 side. And I said, well, why didn't they end it at the property line? Why does it go in a little bit further into that property? But I think it's because it's feeding also the adjacent lot. And so one of my comments is clarification on this easement, who it's going to be dedicated to, and give me deed description of the easement itself. and who it's going to be dedicated to. So I think that's what you see when we discuss a little bit further. I'm going to search a little bit for the tree permit, and I can report back in about 5 minutes on how much clearing they had done, whether it was the entire lot as part of that tree permit. Because I'm assuming the applicant didn't want to come back and get another tree removal permit to do more work. But let me just check, and I'll get back to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely looks like more than just the easement. That's why I saw your note in your report, and I just wanted to make sure that everything is good.
Yeah.
And certainly the applicant, when they first came to us, and I have to look back at my notes on the tree removal application, it's a single lot. So if they came and they said, our intent is to put utilities to build a home and not subdivide it, then they're certainly permitted to get a tree removal permit application through us that way for a single lot. So now that they're coming in with a subdivision, it does change it, but it doesn't make anything that they had done not correct.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to report back to you. Give me a few minutes to look it up.
Thank you, Nicole.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Steve.
I'm looking on GIS, and can somebody, because I can't get the block and lot to come up on our GIS. I'm looking on Google Earth. Can somebody provide me with like an adjacent address? It looks like 669 and 657. Do we have an adjacent address? Because I can't get a block and lot up, because what I'm looking at, I think is what it is where the shoulder starts to open up at that point where Veronica Court ends, that runs parallel to 18. And I think this is the proximity of where this parcel is, because that's where some of those driveways start to come out onto Route 18. But it going back east, I guess on the westbound side, the shoulder just starts there. If that's clear enough. Somebody have an address? I see 669 is the first address of what looks like to be the houses on Marlborough Road. And then they start to come out onto Route 18.
I can't see any addresses visible, Steve.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
What I did was I actually have it up on GIS on my computer here. I did that in preparation for the meeting today. And all I did was bring up your overall map and I just kind of flew myself to the sort of the intersection between Maple, Marlborough, and Route 18. And if where the first house, where the first lot right after the last driveway that's on Route 18. We're the last
going west then.
Yeah, I guess I'm terrible with that. But yeah, heading toward Maple.
All right, so I got you. I was all the way on the other end. Okay,
yeah, so if you'll see on what's on the screen right there, right next to us, to down like lower, that 1734 and number 579, that begins what Allison is going to describe as the pattern on development, where we're front back. We're the last one. 573
right after 1734, closer to
Maple. that's
okay.
we're kind of the last lot that would have the opportunity to do this. After that sharp diamond angle of the Route 18 right away for the intersection just cuts right into those other lots.
I got you. And then there's the turnoff that goes on to Maple Street right there. So you'd probably be before that turnoff. Okay. Yeah, I was
it's
on
a very
the
large
opposite
right
end.
away.
Perfect. Thank you. I got a proximity now.
Yeah.
Thank you. That works.
If there's nothing else, I can get Allison started, Mr. Chair.
Yes, if there's no other questions from anybody on the board, we'll move on to your next witness.
Ms. Coffin, if you could unmute yourself and open up your camera if you haven't done so already, and then
I have done both.
Great. Mr. Robertson?
Ms. Coffin, do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Would you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Allison Coffin. It's spelled Coffin. I am a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm also certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've had my license and certification since 2005. And in the intervening years, I've been accepted as an expert witness in front of boards in more than 90 communities throughout the state, primarily Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex counties. I do appear frequently in Old Whitbridge, but mostly in front of your zoning board.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allison, as we often do, I'm just going to ask if you could take the board through the work that you did to prepare for this, the study of the area that you've conducted, the two variances that are required, the two types of variances that are required, and the proofs for same.
Sure. In reviewing this application, I looked at the plan. I went out and I visited the site. I looked at your zoning ordinance and the master plan, and I looked at the character of the development in the surrounding area, primarily looking at this block between Route 18 and Marlborough Road, but also on the other side of Marlborough Road. The subject site that we're looking at is a rectangular shaped through lot with 24,184 square feet. It has frontage at present on both Route 9 and Marlborough Road, and the site is currently undeveloped. The applicant proposes to subdivide this site into two single-family building lots, eliminating the through lot. One lot will have frontage on Route 18 and the other on Marlborough Road. The site is located in the R15 zone, and the proposed single-family homes are permitted uses in this district. Now, there is some bulk variance relief that's requested with this subdivision. The first is for lot area for both lots, and the second is for lot width for both lots. But the development of these lots, even though they're undersized, will not require any relief for front yard setback, side yard setback, rear yard setback, height, floor area ratio, or landscape area ratio. And the variance relief that's being requested is bulk or C variances, and there are two tests within the municipal land use law for this type of variance. The first is the C1. It's commonly known as a hardship variance and is appropriate when a lot's unique shape, topographic conditions, or pre-existing structures creates a situation where the strict application of the ordinance would result in an undue hardship upon the applicant, and relief is then warranted. The C2 standard is sometimes called a flexible C variance, and it's justified when the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced by the variances and the benefits of that deviation substantially outweigh any detriments. It's my opinion that the variances before the board for this subdivision can be granted under the C1 and the C2 standard. Looking first at the C1 hardship standard, the existing site width is 58.89 feet along Marlborough Road and 79.63 at the Route 18 frontage, and it is not possible to increase the width of this site to the conforming 100 feet. Therefore, there's a hardship related to the proposed lot widths for both of these lots. Now, the area variance can be granted under the C2 standard. The proposed variances advance the purposes of the municipal land use law with regard to purpose A, promoting public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Purpose C, providing adequate light, air, and open space. Though the lots require relief for area and width, they can be developed without relief for setbacks, coverage, landscape area ratio, or floor area ratio, which ensures protection of proper light, air, and open space. And purpose E, promoting the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment. The proposed lots here are in keeping with the character of the area, which includes lots that front on one street or the other. If you look to the south of this property, most of the lots are not through lots. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 south of this property, just shown on the key map that front on Route 18, and then 4 on the other side that front on Marlborough Road, and there's no through lots in that area. There are also a number of lots that are undersized for width. If we look on the west side of Marlborough Road, lots 153.11 and 154.11 to the south of this site are undersized for width. Lots 150.11 and lots 151.11 to the north are undersized for width. And with the frontage on Route 18, we have a number of lots that are undersized for area. We have lot 153.12 and lot 155.12 south of this site on Route 18 are undersized for area. And going back to Marlborough Road, lot 8.11 and lot 9 are undersized for area. So the character of this unique little neighborhood is not of through lots. It's of lots that are undersized for width and some that are undersized for area. So the proposed subdivision is in keeping with the character of this area. Looking on the other side of Marlborough Road, most of the lots have a width of 87 feet, which is non-conforming. So we're keeping with the character of lot frontages on Marlborough Road on both sides of the street. The lots are also in character with the area, again, in that there are a few through lots running from Route 18 to Marlborough Road, with the majority of the lots having only a single frontage. Then we have Purpose G, which is providing space in an appropriate location for residential use. Purpose M, coordinating various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with a view of lessening the cost of such development and to the more efficient use of land. The proposed subdivision allows for a more efficient use of land in an appropriate location for residential development. Now, the benefits of these variants include providing for 2 residential lots without creating any new public roadways, eliminating a through lot, and providing for development which meets the character of the current neighborhood. There is, in my opinion, no detriment to the variances proposed. Though both lots require lot area and width variances, they can be developed in full conformity with the setback, coverage, and ratio requirements of the ordinance. And safe and adequate access can be provided to both lots for the residents as well as for emergency vehicles. And the variances requested will, in my opinion, not impair the intent and purpose of your master plan and zoning ordinance. The use is permitted and appropriate, and the use and development of the proposed lots require no additional variances. And for those reasons, it's my opinion that the board can grant the variance relief necessary for this subdivision in a manner that promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of the public and creates no significant harm to the neighborhood and no detriment to the master plan and zoning ordinance.
Allison, thank you. I just want to do one quick clarification with you. Lot 152.12, I think you might have testified that the width was 58.89, but it's 85.89, correct?
That's correct.
Just want to clarify that. You also indicated that 1, 2, 3, 4 houses next to us, or four groups of development next to us are fronting on both Marlborough and Route 18, in that they're not through lots, right?
Yes, they're fronting on one street or the other.
And then if we go just a little further down south on Route 18, there's 2 or 3 that are presently through lots, but then we go back to a pattern of development for another 4 or so groups of houses that again front on both of the roads.
That's correct.
So it's not just a matter of the ones that are right next to us. It's actually kind of, as you keep going down south Route 18, you have this pattern of development where they are not long through lots.
That's correct.
So if I listen to your testimony, the gist of it that I get is that the proposed development here by the applicant, although creating undersized lots, is actually in keeping with the way that this area has developed, both as to the undersized nature of width and area.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions for Ms. Coffin. She's available for the board and their professionals to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Klauser. Thank you, Ms. Coffin. Board professionals, do we have any questions?
I'll go first. Ms. Coffin, since the applicant is seeking for variance on the lot area, have you inventoried the lots surrounding this parcel to see if there are other parcels within the neighborhood that are similar sized?
Well, yes, lot 153.12 is undersized for area. That's like 13,765 square feet approximately.
Can you hold on for a second? I just want to put the aerial so that the board can understand which lot you're talking about. So are we talking about this lot?
No, these are fronting on Route 18. So the lot immediately to the south on Route 18 is undersized for area. That
This
lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then not that lot, but the lot after it, it's 155.12. Nope, one more.
Number 204.
I don't have the.
Yeah, I think that's the one you're pointing at. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what it looks like on the key map.
Yes, 155.12. That's 12,632 square feet according to the tax records. And then on Marlborough Road, there's a lot 9 which I don't know. I think it would be the one to the south of that.
579.
587, I think it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have block numbers, not street numbers, and those are street numbers. So I think it's, oh goodness, we've pushed my glasses to their maximum. I think it's 587.
That looks like it, 587.
Yep. If that's lot 9, that's 12,763 square feet. And then the lot south of that is also undersized for area at 14,679.
Thank you, Ms. Coffin.
You're welcome.
Board members, the reason I asked Ms. Coffin is when I saw this subdivision, I actually went to Nicole and I was like, why do we allow a subdivision that has to have an access from 18? It's a highway. So to me, sound planning is if all the access is from Marlborough Road. So why would we allow a subdivision like that? And then I started looking at the neighborhood. Nicole and I actually had a long conversation on this and looking at the development patterns. So looking at the neighboring lot, and especially the lot numbers, it turns out that long back, these subdivisions were created. And like a couple of these lots next to the subject property were probably through lots in the past and were subdivided over a period of time. So it kind of now sets a development pattern. I am usually not for it if it is not consistent with the neighborhood, because then you're going against the zoning standards. If you're creating an undersized lot, typically what happens is the planning board grants a variance for these undersized lots. The next step is when the builder comes and develops the home or starts construction, he realizes the house is too small, and then they go to the zoning board to ask for a D4 variance. And we've been through similar applications in the past, but that is why it was quite essential to go back and look at the history, the deeds around for properties around this subject property. And that is why I wanted Ms. Coffin to just testify and give in those numbers so that the board knows that that is the development pattern within that area currently. But that's all from me. Nicole, I know you wanted to add it.
No, Veena, I think you said it all. I mean, we were just kind of scratching our heads thinking, why put a home with access on 18, and a little piece of me said, well, there's an easement that has utilities in it. Why not use that easement for access to the rear property and have all the access from Marlborough Road? And then, in hearing that the county has no interest in the area for the lot that's on Marlborough Road will stay the same, I was thinking, why not utilize that and avoid Route 18? It's really, you're avoiding being in front of DOT as well. But it sounds like, DOT seems to be punting to us to see if it's going to be approved first before they even take any consideration or action. So I'm quite curious to see what would DOT do, Mr. Mamakis brought up a good point in, at least, and I think, Chairman Marucci also brought up a good point as well, is when you start having, the cars or the visitors start piling up in the driveway, would that key be available, to turn around? Then it's like, well, do we go back to keeping the wide width that the developer's engineer had proposed before to sort of, alleviate if the cars are stacking, that they have room to maneuver because there's no other option, there's no parking on 18. I did go on Google Earth and I did measure, and it's about an 8-foot shoulder at that area. So they do have room if God forbid they did have to back out. But ideally you don't want that situation because it's heavily trafficked and there's just a lot of volume on 18. So anyway, I mean, Veena said it, I think it's important that Ms. Coffin put in on the record that the areas around sort of mimic the same condition. And then I'm sure the applicant's engineer and planner, looked at that in consideration when coming up with the subdivision line. So I just want to put that on the record. Incidentally, before I end, I just wanted to let the board know that I did look up the permit application. I did look up the before pictures of the site prior to the tree removal. The trees that were over 6 inches in diameter at breast height were looked at first. This is the after picture. What you don't see is in the before, there was a lot of dead trees that were in the lot. There were a lot of trees that had fallen. And if you notice, the underbrush underneath the trees have been cleared as well, because there were a lot of limbs that were down that were, sort of teetering. So, so it does look like a lot of clearing had occurred, but you could notice on the left side where the truck is, that's right on top of where the easement is, or slightly a little bit off of the easement. But you can see along that fence line, that's that 20-foot easement area. This photo was taken as part of review for this application. The existing photo was taken in 2020. Actually, February 2020 was when the permit was issued. So I have to assume that the tree removal happened sometime after that, or between, or within the last year, between that permit and then within this time frame. So just so the board is aware that it seems like everything seems to be, see the underbrush, this and what Dave Hall from my office had done, and I probably have 50 other pictures in the directory for the tree permit, is he took a view looking up at some of the trees and how you could see that they're just sticks in the air, no branches off of them. They look like they were dead and rotted, and probably why some of these trees had fallen. It looks like some of them had fallen probably in storm events as well. So anyway, I just wanted to conclude there. I didn't want to take away from the planner's testimony. I just wanted to sort of finish my sentence from before.
If I could,
Nicole, that was helpful.
if I could respond to Nicole, obviously the applicant, in order to be able to have the driveway, will have to secure a DOT permit, which we've started that process. So that's under their jurisdiction. Those driveways are consistent with the driveway. There's a number of driveways on Route 18 in that area. And if the board would like, or if you want to leave it up to Ms. Shapiro and Ms. Sawant, we have the room there to have that larger bump out. Both, physically there is the room, and there's the room under your impervious standard. So, not an issue to keep that area there if the board feels that that's a more appropriate design, rather than sort of cutting it off, as Ms. Shapiro indicated earlier, for just a bump out. So I know there's no objection from our end to do that. I actually really pushed Adnan, make it as big as possible to show the board what we could do out there for turnarounds, and then let the board professionals curtail us. So we will have to get a DOT permit. That's up to them, and we can keep that bump out, and we can certainly work with your pros to make sure there's enough area to turn around.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on. Any questions from the board members?
Comment.
Casey?
I'd like to thank Ms. Shapiro for providing those pictures. As you could tell from the first picture she showed, it's like park-like setting, to the second picture where it's like, what's that? So there's definitely, you could see there's been some work done, which I'm glad that everything's on the up and up. And but you could definitely, driving down 18, you notice the difference between the two.
And to me, it looks like an improvement.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Steve.
I have another question. So I'm looking at it on Google Earth, and I see the last driveway coming towards Maple Avenue. Where in proximity would this driveway come out? Because it looks literally between that driveway and the actual portion where you can make the turn, and I'm just guesstimating here, about 500 feet. The other question I have is, I don't know if, and I'm not sure, does anybody know if the bus is transversed through that lane, because there's a sign there that says bus with an arrow, right, I would say dead center in the property. And my last comment would be, I would think to, let's see what DOT says. That would be my opinion, or my question of what DOT says, because this is right in the shoulder, right? And it's, I would think it's maybe 500 feet from from where they start to turn, going to make the turn onto Maple, because I travel on there enough as well. So those are my concerns, and I don't know if the board would look at it that way. And Mrs. Shapiro gave us a great view of it. My thought would be let the DOT decide what they feel is accurate on that road from that distance from that last driveway to Maple Avenue.
Mr. Mamakis, if I'm looking at the Route 18 lot, the driveway is slightly biased away from the intersection. And I would anticipate that should this board act favorably on it, we have to go to somebody first. The law says we're allowed to come here first and then go to our other outside agencies. But I fully expect that your resolution of approval, should you grant the application, would be contingent on the DOT. And if the DOT required some, significant change, there's not a lot of room out there, but if they required some significant change to the driveway that Ms. Shapiro thought was beyond her office's administrative control, we'd have to come back and show you what that new driveway is that they approved. But I fully expect that your approval, should you grant it, would be conditioned on the DOT allowing it. And if they don't, then we have to have a new plan. But I got to start somewhere. And it sounds like from what Adnan testified, where the DOT is not gonna get moving on us until we get past you.
I understand, and our professionals have guided us in the past, and we'll look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Steve. Anybody else? Okay, and if there are no other questions, I think we should open it up to the public.
Please do.
Okay. Gina, refresh my memory. How long do we generally give in this virtual world?
We will wait for a minute.
1 minute?
Yes.
Okay.
As of now, there are no hands raised. No raised hands.
Okay, for the full minute, we have another 20 seconds left. Okay, we'll now close the public portion. And if we have no more final comments from anyone, can we get a quick summary by the board attorney and to include the contingency for the DOT?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is an application for minor subdivision approval to create 2 new single-family residential building lots. The applicant requires variances for lot area and lot width. If the application is approved, the applicant did indicate that all of the technical requirements and comments in Ms. Sawant's professional memo dated February 1, 2001, the applicant would comply with all of those. That would be a condition, compliance with all of those specifically listed comments and technical requirements. And more specifically, this application, should it be approved, would be subject to and contingent upon the driveway access permit being issued by the NJDOT for the property on Route 18. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robertson. And if there's nothing else, we'll put it to vote. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it, Ernie.
Okay, moved by Mr. Schmitz. A second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Lauer.
Go.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes.
Thank you very much, board members. Have a good evening. I appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, it's Joe Sardillo. Just wanted to announce myself. I was able to get back to join the meeting. I heard the end of that application, but I wanted to, didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, and while you're here, we held off discussing the preliminary schedule,
Okay.
board schedule, until you were on board. So if we want to open that up before the next application, just take a couple of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, while you're doing that, this is the court reporter. I'm going to take a minute to set up the next application.
Okay, very good.
Don't start.
Thank you. Okay, does everybody have a copy of the schedule or any comments?
I don't have one. What are we changing?
Just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to share my screen. So board members, Joe had indicated that he has a conflict on June 15th, July 20th, August 17th, and September 21st of the schedule that was approved. So on your screen, we have new dates. And Joe is available on those dates. So we have moved the planning board meeting to the first Tuesday in June, July, August, and September. I think these dates work out better because in the previous schedule, there was an instance where there was a month and a half between two planning board meetings. So we have tried to pace it such that each month there is a meeting, and between two meetings, there's roughly a month. We had consulted Joe before finalizing these dates. So Joe, you can chime in.
Yes, thank you. These actually followed the original board's dates before they were starting to be changed due to the township committee council's change. These are the first Tuesday of the month, which is what I committed to the board. But the other one that we were making some changes due to the conflicts previously, I had already made other commitments on those dates, so I couldn't be there. And I know the board, wants me to attend, versus sending someone else. So changing it back to these original dates will allow me to do so.
Okay, does anybody have any conflicts for those 4 dates or any others? Okay, and I'm good with them as well. Okay, so how do we memorialize that?
Just by taking a vote.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Cannon and
I'll second.
second by Mr. Lenning.
No, Mr. Palmer, or whoever.
Okay,
One of us.
one of you. All right, thank you.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes. Okay, and the final application for this evening is number 69-2020P, and it's Oak 18 LLC. It's a major site plan preliminary and final with C variances.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Mr. Lyon.
Are we going to discuss the special meeting for March 16th?
That was taken off, I think.
Yeah, that was taken off. Yes, there was a revised agenda sent out this evening.
Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so we'll move on to Oak 18 LLC.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. Due to the lateness of time, I'm not going to spend much time on the introduction other than to say that this is a property on the eastbound lane of Route 18. The proposal is for a retail shopping center, retail restaurant complex. We have 3 witnesses that we'll get as far as the board allows us to go this evening. We have an engineer, Jim Henry, traffic engineer, Nick Gazzone, and a planner, John McDonough, and McDonough, I'm sorry. And we're going to start with Mr. Henry.
Okay.
Jim, are you
so
on?
I'm just going to bring Mr. Henry on the screen so I can see him. 1 second.
Jim.
Okay, I see you, Mr. Henry. Would you please, if I could swear you in, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. James Henry, Henry.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Henry, we're seeking to have you qualified as a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. Will you place your records, your credentials on the record, please?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Rutgers University. I also have a minor in planning. I have a master's degree from Rutgers University as well, with a focus in water resources engineering, civil engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, as well as New York. And then I'm a licensed professional planner, and I'm a principal at Dynamic Engineering firm in Lake Como, New Jersey. I've testified in front of over 50 boards throughout New Jersey and been qualified as both a professional engineer as well as a professional planner.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you.
And Mr. Henry, your office, under your supervision, prepared the plans that are before the board this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and would you, just rather than me ask you questions point by point, would you run through a narrative as to where this property is located and what's being proposed?
Sure, absolutely. Let me just pull up my my notes. My computer crashed, so give me 1 second. I'm just pulling it up. All right. So the subject property, and I'm just going to refer to, I don't know, do we want to mark the exhibits, or how do we want to handle referring to each exhibit, Sal?
If it's a separate exhibit that wasn't previously submitted to the board, then we do mark those.
Okay.
If we can provide a digital copy and hard copies to Dawn after. If it's something that's been previously submitted to the board, for example, a sheet of the site plans that was submitted, we normally don't mark those unless you have a modified version of it.
Okay. So we're going to refer to the aerial map, which I believe is sheet 2 of the PDF that was submitted to the board. Great, thank you. So the parcel ID is known as block 19013, lots 3, 4, and 5. The property location is on Route 18 South. The parcel size is approximately 1.1 acres, which is an existing nonconformity. It's an irregularly shaped lot, kind of a pizza pie shaped. The existing zoning, it's in the CC zone, the community commercial zone. The existing use is currently undeveloped. And then adjacent to the property, for the purposes of this exhibit, I usually consider Route 18 to be north and south. So I'm going to consider the left-hand side of the sheet north. So Route 18 would be going north-south. So the north of the property would be an existing Dunkin' Donuts. Beyond that would be the Wawa on Route 18. To the south of the property would be a undeveloped property containing wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas, and that is owned by the county. To the east of the property are residential uses on the other side of Route 18, which is very close to where the application right before this was discussing. And then to the west is also the property that's owned by Middlesex County. So adjacent to the property, there really isn't much going on. There's just the Dunkin' Donuts directly adjacent to it. And then obviously it's got frontage along Route 18, which is going to be mostly where we're going to be discussing the improvements today. So if we could refer to the existing conditions, go to sheet 1 of the PDF. Sorry, it's the one before that. There you go. As I mentioned, the property is an existing undeveloped wooded property. It's fairly unique where it has a kind of a triangular shaped lot or a pizza pie lot. The parcel itself is a low-lying parcel compared to Route 18, and the property is actually set back quite a bit from Route 18. There's an exceptionally wide right-of-way along this frontage, where there is approximately 54 feet between the curb line and the front property line of this parcel. The topography is generally fairly flat, and it basically drains from Route 18 to the west. If you consider Route 18 going north-south to the west. From an environmental perspective, we did do quite a bit of due diligence on this. We went through and we identified wetlands that are located just along the southerly property line of this site. We went and obtained an LOI from the DEP and basically determined that the wetlands that are south of the site are not located on the property, and also the buffer associated with those wetlands is not located on the property. So the property is actually free of environmental constraints, even though just to the south of it are wetlands. And then we're also coordinating submitting an applicability determination to the DEP to confirm that there's no flood hazard regulation associated with any stream or anything like that just to the south of the property. And then if we could reference sheet 3, I believe, which is the colored site plan. Thank you. So sheet 3 really is just a colorized version of the site plan that was submitted to the board.
So we should mark that then, right, Jim? That wasn't previously submitted as a...
That was not previously submitted, correct. So that would be the site plan rendering. And that's dated 2/2/2021.
Here, mark that exhibit A1.
Sure.
Thank you.
And on this site, basically, we're proposing a strip center, which consists of 2 retail uses and then as well as 2 restaurant uses, both of which are permitted uses within the zone. The building itself is approximately 9,340 square feet in total area. And the retail uses consist of approximately 6,300 square feet. And the restaurant uses approximately 3,000 square feet. The building is located fairly, as I mentioned, the property is unique. So it's kind of an odd shaped lot. So the building is within the rear yard setback along the westerly property line. So there is a variance required, and that is primarily dictated by the irregular shape of the lot. From a topographic standpoint, we try to maintain the existing topography as much as possible. We are going to be filling the lot a little bit. And then, basically the parking area will be along the easterly part of the property line. And the stall size that we're proposing as far as the parking lot is 10 by 20. There were some review letters, which we did receive from the board's professionals. And we did prepare an alternate site design, which allows us to get some additional parking spaces. And in that instance, we're going to be proposing 9 by 18 parking stalls, and we get a few more parking stalls than what we show here today. But for now, I'm just going to leave the color rendering up because there isn't much of a difference between the two exhibits. From a parking perspective, if you take the ordinance requirement, overall 103 parking spaces are required, and there are 41 spaces proposed. And our traffic engineer is here tonight, and he's going to be giving justification through ITE calculations showing that we meet the ITE requirement from a parking perspective. Although a variance is still required as we do not comply with the ordinance requirement. Under the alternative site plan, which includes reducing the parking space width and length slightly, we were able to get up to 44 parking spaces in the alternate design. We are requesting a few waivers with the parking lots. There are landscape islands required every 10 spaces. In front of the building itself, we are requesting a waiver from that requirement, being that we have more than 10 spaces proposed, and I believe opposite that as well, where there's 15 spaces. As far as access, we have submitted for a DOT major access permit. It's kind of a unique design. You know, we are very concerned with the visibility of the building itself. As I mentioned, the building is set back approximately 50 feet or so from the curb line of Route 18. So that's where the property line starts. And then in addition to that, the building is then set back even further, from the front property line. So overall, we're looking at a building setback almost 125 feet from the curb line. So visibility from Route 18 is going to be somewhat limited. So what we did was we actually have an ingress driveway on the southerly side of the property and an egress driveway on the northerly side of the property, which basically allows vehicles to pass by the site, look at the freestanding sign, hopefully the building, and then make a determination whether or not they want to pull in or not. And one of the big reasons we're doing that is primarily for visibility, as we are very concerned about the visibility of the site being it is going to be a little bit lower than Route 18, and it's kind of tucked back away from the roadway. There were some waivers we are requesting tonight. There is a curb return radius of 2 feet. We're generally compliant with the ordinance requirement. However, in some instances where we have parking stalls abut against, basically landscaped areas, we have radiuses of approximately 2 feet, whereas 5 feet is required. And then there is also a waiver as far as a fire lane. We're willing to comply as far as provide a fire lane along the center of the drive aisle. I know there was something in one of the review letters about the fire lane, and we're willing to comply as far as striping anything that the fire department wishes. I did review the fire department review letter, and there weren't any real substantial comments regarding the fire lane, but we'll add one if requested by the board. From a circulation standpoint, we are providing a 24-foot wide two-way drive aisle along the front of the building. And then from an ADA and sidewalk standpoint, there was a comment from the board's professionals as far as providing sidewalk along Route 18, and we're going to agree to comply with that. There was also an additional comment from the board's professionals about providing a 4-foot wide sidewalk behind the building, and we're also going to agree to comply with that requirement as well. From a loading perspective, we are requesting a variance. We're not proposing any loading area on site. This is really going to be more of like a neighborhood type strip center. It's not going to have tractor trailers utilized on the site at all. It's primarily going to be, small loading trucks, Amazon vans, or box trucks, which will be done during off-peak hours. So we're not anticipating a loading zone would really be required at this location. And we're willing to restrict the size trucks that access this site to just box trucks. As far as trash enclosure, we are proposing a masonry trash enclosure on the southerly side of the property. Because of the orientation of the lot and because of the unique nature of the lot, we are proposing it within a front yard, which is a variance. We are also proposing it within the 50-foot setback of the side yard, and that is also a variance. And again, that's very much dictated by the unique shape of this property and the orientation of the parking lot because of the unique shape. From a bulk standard requirement, I think I mentioned this is an undersized lot. There's 3 acres required, and we're proposing the existing lot is 1.1 acres. And then from a setback requirement, you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the southerly corner of the southwestern corner of the building is setback approximately 15 feet from the southerly property line.
Mr. Henry, before you move on, just want to clarify, in terms of, because it's an undersized lot, the applicant is not seeking FAR or impervious coverage relief. Is that correct? We're going to comply with those standards?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
From a lighting perspective, we generally try to comply with IES standards to minimize glare and really just provide enough lighting for safety and security, as well as to minimize off-track impacts. We're basically proposing minimal illumination along the front of the building, approximately 2.3 to 2.8 foot candle maximum. There is a waiver required, as I believe the ordinance requires a maximum of 1 foot candle. But I don't think the amount of lighting that we're proposing is substantial in nature. We're really just trying to make sure we hit the minimum amount of illumination in front of the building. We're proposing 3 wall-mounted lights, 10-foot mounting height, and 3 single head lights with approximately 18-foot mounting height. I believe there was a reference in one of the review letters as far as just confirming that we were compliant with the 18-foot mounting height, and I believe we are. From a landscaping perspective, we really just try to buffer the exterior of the site as much as possible while trying to basically maintain the visibility, the minimal visibility along Route 18. We are proposing a number of trees along the perimeter of the site, a total of 18 trees, 6 shade trees, 2 ornamental trees, and 10 evergreen trees. As far as shrubs, we mainly tried to heavily buffer the front parking area from Route 18. So we did a double row of shrubs along Route 18 in order to buffer the headlights from hitting any cars that are passing by on Route 18. And then along the perimeter of the site, where we're adjacent to commercial uses, we tried to provide just a single row and then some landscaping along the sides of the building. And then at the back of the site, near the infiltration basin, we did propose a number of trees around the outside of the basin to help screen that basin from the adjacent uses.
Excuse me, Mr. I'm sorry, I have to jump in here. We do, Mr. Chairman, we do have an executive session scheduled at 10 p.m. And given the technology of doing virtual, it's not like we can just, run over that. We do have to sign over to that at 10 p.m. To make sure that we keep with that. So that executive session is expected to take a half an hour to an hour, just estimated. So we may have to carry this application, but I leave that to Mr. Chairman, you and the board.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. How much longer does the applicant think that their presentation will take? There are 2 more witnesses, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Henry's probably halfway through his presentation, and then we do have 2 other witnesses. So we're going to be at least a half hour, I would think, at least, without questions.
So you want to let would it be acceptable to the board to let Mr. Henry conclude his testimony and then carry the others over? And Dawn, I'd like your input on this too. Do we have room on the next meeting?
Yeah, March 2nd is available. We can put them on March 2nd.
Okay, yeah, but based on the importance of the executive session, I think that's the way we should go if it's acceptable.
Yeah, that I'm available that night. I just want to make sure my other 3 professionals are available.
I'm available as well.
Okay.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I think I don't think we can actually continue with Mr. Henry at this time because we have to go into executive session at 10. It's not that we just kind of carry over. But since if we are going to carry it, we may just carry because it wouldn't be fair to have them hold and try to come back to the meeting because it could be our executive session could be a half an hour, could be an hour, could be longer. So it probably makes the most sense just to carry the whole application from this point forward. I hate to cut applications and testimony in the middle, but I think it would be just fair to the applicant and to the board.
And all of our professionals are available, Mr. Chair, for March 2nd. So we would request that, we would certainly grant the board an extension of time in which to act. And we would request that the board or the chair or council announce the new date without further notice, please.
Okay, very good.
Sal, I'll send you a continuance tomorrow morning for you
Okay,
to
you
sign.
got it. Thanks, Don.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just make the announcement that this application is concluding for this evening. They haven't completed completed the full testimony. Their full application is being carried, including any public comment or questions. And it'll be carried to the March 2nd, 2021 board meeting without further notice being required.
Excellent. Okay, and I would like to thank the applicant as well.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. I'm sorry, just for a minute. Joe, I think they still have to do this because of the virtual meeting format.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Bina. The virtual, even all this time, I still seem to forget about that. Yeah, Mr. Alfieri, because the meeting's being held virtually and each meeting has its own link and content, joining information, login information, that even when, applications are being carried, they do need to renotice so that the public has that information.
That's fine.
Be able to log in.
I will renotice. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for that, but it's just unfortunately
okay.
that's what we're living in.
All right, thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to close this session and then move into the executive session?
Actually, you know what we should do, Mr. Chairman? We should, since we'll just open the meeting up for general public comments. That way, when we go into executive session, we can just adjourn from there because we'll advise the public, any member of the public who's here that may want to make any general comments, that there's no further action going to be taken after the executive session, so we don't have to come back into open session.
Okay, so all right. Okay, so we'll open it up to public comments. And we'll give them the minute to raise hands.
Mr. Chair, this is not going to be about the Oak application, correct?
I'm sorry?
No,
This
you're
is not-
done, Debbie.
I'm done. I can sign off.
You're done.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Mr. Chairman, there's only one attendee, but I think they're with that previous application. There's nobody else online.
Okay. So we'll give it a-
That's fair, Mr. Chairman. I think at that point, we can move into exec, and then that way we can just adjourn and don't have to come back to open.
Okay, we'll close the public comments and we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So we're making the motion to adjourn and go into executive session.
Yes.
right?
Yes, we're making a motion to go into executive session, and then to members of the public who still may be listening to this live virtually, we will be adjourning from executive session. No further public action will be taken. Only action will be taken is to actually adjourn after the executive session discussion. So the motion is to move into executive session.
Okay, I'll move to go into executive session.
I second.
Okay, moved then by Ms. Cannon and second by Mr. Petty.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Ms. Cannon,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes.
All right, now we have to go out and back in again, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.